Welcome to the CA 2.3 Auditing Principles and Practice. I am your presenter, Francis Aruturi. The presentation has been structured in such a way as to make you pass your exams without any problem. So the contents are as follows. We are going to look at the introduction. They will also look at the ZAQA level descriptors. They will go through the learning outcomes for the subject, the syllabus topics, the main command words, the exam format, and the general competences expected. Topics past papers will also be looked at, and also suggested solutions and the chief examiner's report. After that, we'll end our presentation. So the introduction to this presentation is simply that we want to orient ZICA students on the exam answering techniques. The deliverables after this presentation, we want to make ZICA students well equipped to answer future examination questions. Expectations definitely is an improvement in the pass rates. The ZAQA, the Zambia Qualifications Authority level descriptors. What every student must know is there are a lot of stakeholders involved in these exams. So ZAQA is very competent, and they also want to make sure that whatever outcomes are coming out cover a number of competences. We have what we call foundation competence. This is what a graduate can comprehend and assimilate. Then we've got practical competences, which is simply what a graduate can do. Then we have reflexive skills, which advanced students have to do. At our level at CA 2.3, we'll look at practical skills as well as foundational competences. Those are very, very important, what you can do and what you have assimilated. The learning outcomes for CA 2.3 are very critical. What you notice is the command word used is explaining most of the outcomes. Explain, explain, explain. Like the first one, learning outcome, is explain the key audit and assurance concepts and the role of audit and assurance in relation to organizations. The other one is explain audit, assurance, and regulatory framework. So it's important that we appreciate that most of the commandments are explained. And then also we have evaluate, especially on learning outcome number 9. Learning outcome number 11, we've got apply. Then number 13, we've got a report. So it's important that these command words are appreciated and interpreted correctly in an exam. The syllabus topics, that's a summary of the syllabus topics. It is important to appreciate the weightings. So the weightings for all the syllabus topics are the same. The weighted at 20%. That's why any exam you see covers almost the entire syllabus. Main command words. This is very important. If you fail to interpret the command words properly, then it's either you'll be answering your own questions and not a question asked by the examiner. What we'll notice here, like I said, the main learning outcomes comes out with explain. So explain simply means make clear. So it's important that in auditing, your CA 2.3, you make things clear so that the markers can understand what you're talking about. There will be other command words like define, state, identify, describe, distinguish, illustrate, discuss, advise, evaluate. Now, evaluate is a high-level verb. So if you're told to evaluate, be careful. You need to plan your answer if you have to score high marks. Demonstrate, categorize, prepare, analyze, compare, contrast. Again, compare, contrast, very important because you really need to show the similarities and also the difference between the items in question. Then you also be requested to recommend or suggest. So you must appreciate that when they say recommend or suggest, you propose a course of action. If you don't do that, you are not answering the question asked. Exam format. It has been observed that most of the candidates, students, when they appear for these exams, it's as if they don't know the format. So it's important that before you appear for the exams, you know the exam format. The first question is a compulsory question for 40 marks. And then the second, section B, has got 4 questions, you answer 3 out of 4. Each question is 20 marks. So it's always important that you appreciate before you go to the exam. You'll be given 3 hours plus 15 minutes reading time. Most of the students do not know how to use the 15 minutes reading time. It's important that you appreciate that. General competence is expected. All qualifications have a lot of stakeholders. Like an accountant, a lot of stakeholders want to see that the product being produced is fit for purpose. So through these exams, we want you to be able to demonstrate communication skills, problem-solving skills, team skills, people management skills, customer service skills, results orientation. All these competences are supported by the Zika-approved syllabus. Topics. So what I'll do is I'll take you through past exam questions, extract from the suggested solutions, and the extract from the chief examiner's report. But my main focus, because we want to concentrate on exam answering techniques, will be on the requirements for past exam questions. So topic 1, its purpose, regulatory, and professional requirements of auditing or assurance engagements. This is simply an audit framework. We want to tell you what auditing is all about. So it's important that you appreciate what auditing is all about and the various aspects of it. Auditors are regulated, so it's important they are auditing standards. So it's always important that you appreciate this background, because without this background, you may be missing out on the easy marks. Auditors may be removed, may resign, are appointed. So we have to appreciate how the rules are for these appointments, removals, and including resignations. What I've done is I've taken out a past exam question from December 2022, question 5. Now you can see there's a background there, so it's important that we appreciate that. But the requirement for this question, despite the text put there, is simply explain 5 statutory rights that enable auditors to carry out their duties. This is simply a knowledge-based question. So if you're presenting yourself in an exam, we expect you to be able to recall. Yeah? That's why under the level descriptors there, Zach was simply saying these are foundational competencies expected of a student. So you should have learned that if you didn't learn, definitely you cannot answer this question. So it's important that when you're presenting yourself in an exam, you should have gone through what are the statutory rights for these auditors. You'd find that the main weaknesses for most of the students is they have not studied, they don't understand what the examiner is asking, and they want to use common sense. Common sense cannot give you, because these are from the Companies Act, and they are clear. Okay? For example, an auditor has got access, or got the right of access. And don't confuse rights and duties. So here they're asking for statutory rights, so focus on statutory rights, and they are using the verb explain. So explain, like we said, make clear. If you just list, you get less marks. So that's a suggested solution. You find that after access to records is very important. Okay? Again, the auditor has got the right to attend general meetings. He's got many rights just to make sure that his work is done properly. You find that the examiner's comments normally is students did not bring any knowledge to the table. So it's important that as students, you appreciate that you prepared for the exams for you to be able to pass these auditing exams. I've also taken another question from June 22 examination about the first topic. So the requirement is simply explain. Again, explain, because like we said in the learning outcomes, explain is the main command word used by the learning outcomes. So explain who is eligible to act as the auditor of a limited company under the provisions of the Companies Act. So if you don't know the Companies Act provisions, including the Accountants Act of 2008, you cannot answer this question. So again, it's a knowledge-based question which we expect you to answer. And also, whether a newly qualified CA Zambia graduate can sign the auditor's report. So these are very important competences. It's very foundational competences, because this is just knowledge-based. It's not something which you have discussed, or it's just a matter of recording and then giving the examiner. One of the weaknesses here is normally students not answering all parts of the question. If you look at this, there is a number of provisions, a number of things, and they're even using the state. So stating whether a CA graduate can actually sign reports, that should be an easy mark. It's important to know that in accounting, it's not just the theories, it's also the practical skills. So a newly qualified CA Zambia graduate does not have the practical skills to be able to sign the auditor's report. That should come out. These were 6 marks, easy marks, which should have been, obtained without any problems. So the suggested solution, again, is very clear. It's just quoting from the Companies Act. If you look at the following, again, we are saying even the Accountants Act is also very important in answering this question. Examiner's report, again, we are saying, please, can you bring what you've understood from learning? So learning is very, very important. Yes, others do self-study, but please, that self-study is not adequate. Try to find people who can actually tutor you so that you can actually have the required knowledge to present in the exams. Another question was obtained from the March 2023 exam on the first topic. Now, all this is being made, just make sure that you understand that knowledge is very, very important when you're presenting yourself in an exam. So the requirement was such that explain the meaning, almost just defining. So explain the meaning of social and environmental audits. That is 3 marks. So 3 marks should not be a big problem for a well-prepared student. And the meaning of social and environmental audits must be clear. Okay? In your textbooks, these are explained properly. So what we are saying is social audits are not auditing of society or environmental audit, auditing of the environment. That's not it. Yeah? So you want to see how responsive the organization is towards societal and environmental issues. That's the audit we are talking about. So which means that we expect a company to be able to prepare reports about environmental issues and social issues. Then the auditor will audit those to see whether they are showing a true and fair presentation of what is the state of affairs. So the 3 marks should have all been obtained. But without knowledge, definitely most of the answers are way out of context. The other one is identify and explain. So again, the verbs there. If you are doing these exams, at least for identifying, get a few marks. Maybe explanations may be poor, but please don't write nothing. If you write nothing, it's only 3 marks there. So again, for identifying, get something. Explanation, get something. Definitely the tilt is towards more marks for explanation. Then the B part was explain 3 distinguishing factors between reasonable and limited assurance. What you have to appreciate is in auditing, there are many assignments. When you say reasonable assurance, it's not average, it's high-level assurance. When you say limited assurance, that's where you give negative assurance, where you say, nothing has come to my attention to believe that this has not been done properly. Again, that is knowledge-based. If you've been in class, or if you've been tutored to, you should be able to appreciate the distinction between the two. And the 6 marks were there to be taken. Then the other one was state the type of engagement. Now, stating does not mean explanation. Just state and you get your 2 marks. Then the other one was identify and explain. So if they say identify and explain, even if you don't know much, try to identify so you can get some of the marks. Yeah? Identify and explain 4 factors. Now, we're talking about 4 factors. Why give 2? Or why give 6? Make sure you give 4. That's very, very important in these examinations. So the solution is there. So we go to the examiner's report. Again, the examiner is saying most of the students did not even attempt this question, which is not okay for your preparation. If you are prepared adequately, you should be able to answer this question. Others did not even know what social and environmental audits were. So in an exam, prepare adequately and don't miss out on such easy marks. I've also taken another question from March 2023. All this is just to make sure that you appreciate that at the end of it all, auditing is not as difficult as we think. Auditing must be a simple subject which we should be able to score high and go out there in practice to show that we've actually been baked properly. So the requirement was simply using information in the scenario identify and explain elements of the assurance engagement. Now, for you to be able to answer this question, you should know what are the elements of the assurance engagement. Okay? We all know that there are those three parties: the responsible party, you've got the users of the reports, and you've got the practitioner, who's the auditor in an auditing assignment. Then you've got the subject matter, you've got the suitable criteria, you've got evidence, and then you've got the report at the end of the day. So the assurance engagement must have those 5 elements in there. But if you have to get the all 10 marks here, you need to be able to explain also referring to the scenario. If you did not refer to the scenario, you got maybe 5 marks. If you refer to the scenario, you got all the 10 marks. So again, make sure that you're able to appreciate what the examiner is talking about. He's talking about identify and explain. So those command words must be appreciated so you get 4 marks. The examiner's report, again, is very clear, same thing, no knowledge, mixing things. So it's very important that we appreciate what the question is all about. Then you also have a question from September 2022. This required us as students to describe 5 basic factors to consider when screening. Now, describe is a bit high level. If you just list or you state, you get few marks. But if you describe, you obey the command word, you get your 10 marks. Now, most students may fail to appreciate what screening means. So it's important that you know, because in the auditing manuals, the textbooks, these things are well explained. As a note, you don't want to associate yourself with a client who may not be credible, with management or shareholders who lack integrity. Because auditing is all about integrity, you're doing the right thing. So it's important that we're able to screen the clients. And then nowadays there are issues like money laundering. So it's important to know that whoever we're dealing with may not be a money launderer or even a drug dealer. So it's always important that clients are screened before we accept audit appointments. So this was also a straightforward question, and it was 10 marks. 10 marks, 5 basic factors. Don't give less, don't give it 2. The examiner is saying 5, give 5. Again, like I've said, don't give more than 5. Give more than 5, you are chewing into the time which is expected on other questions. So it's always important that it's 5, you give 5. Then explain under B, explain why an engagement letter is important. An engagement letter is a contract between the auditor and the client. So it's always important that that is signed. Whether you like it or not, disputes may arise. So because of that, we have to make sure that these are professional assignments. An engagement letter must be done. And we've got auditing standards, we've got ISA 210, which guides us on what engagement letters are all about. So a client or a student who knows ISA 210 will have no problems in getting the 6 marks. So it's always advisable that you go through the text, okay, you go through the past papers. These were easy marks, 6 of them. Then you're saying under C, suggest actions to take if Kasempa does not sign the engagement letter. Definitely you cannot say, no, give a bad report. No, these are preliminaries. If they don't sign, you may have to hold a meeting. Try to hold a meeting with management. Not everyone has done auditing in these client organizations. You may have to hold meetings. From those meetings, you may find these things can be resolved. So if you go straight and say, no, we'll refuse, we'll do what? No. Auditors are also in business. They need to do business. They need to make money. They need to pay bills. So it's important that they hold discussions, try to resolve these. It's only when things are failed and you feel it's not possible can you say, we shall decline this engagement. So the factors were given there: management integrity, the risk, relationship with Kasempa in case there are any ethical issues, and also ability to do the work. Can you do the work as an auditor? Because don't accept what you cannot do. Engagement economics, we're in business. The expected fees from this assignment, is it going to cover our costs? Are we going to make a profit on it? And also, if there are previous auditors, try to contact them. Like in this case, they were previous auditors. The importance of engagement letter, I've already said, it is a contract. You avoid misunderstanding. ISA 210 gives us the details. Then, the examiner's report pointed out to students not understanding the meaning and the importance of client screening. So if you don't know client screening, your answer will not be able to respond to what the examiner is expecting you to say. So it's always important that we go through the syllabuses and then we appreciate what types of words are there, and we should also be able to discuss issues in the context given by the examiners. Importance, again, if you don't know your ISA 210, simply means you cannot know the importance of the engagement letter. Then topic 2. Topic 2 is about governance. Okay, governance, if you look at the Cadbury report, we are saying governance is simply the way organizations are directed and controlled. Over the past years, including now, there have been a lot of corporate scandals. Now, those definitely does not go well in public domain, and auditors have been found to be wanting. So that's why these topics must be taken seriously by anyone doing auditing, auditing subjects. It's very, very important. So we'll talk about the nature, accountability, audit committees, internal control, effectiveness, communication, and all those. So I did take a question from June 2022 examination about corporate governance. The requirement was simply, yes, there's a lot of background information given in the question, just to make you appreciate a lot of it. And when you are given a long question, 1 page, 2 pages, just know that's the simplest question, because a lot of things are just in there, it's just a matter of picking, and like the requirement said under B, using the information given in the governance structure of Ethics Limited. So meaning don't go outside. You go outside, you're not answering the question asked. All you needed to do is just be in the question, and you explain 7 deficiencies in the governance principles of Ethics Limited. So those 7 marks were very easy because you just needed to go into the question and then, but also please, when you take them, try to explain. If you don't explain, you get half the marks definitely. So it's always important that you stick to the text in the question. And we're also required to provide a recommendation on how each deficiency can be minimized. So again, all you need to do is to make sure that your presentation is answering to both parts of the question. A tabular format or a columnar format would have done the trick. We've got 2 columns, 1 explaining the deficiencies, 1 recommending. Now those who try to don't use a columnar format or tabular format ends up answering one part of the question and missing out on the other. These were 14 marks. So if you do a table, you'd find that you've got all the chance of getting all the 14 marks, and the chance of passing are very high. Again, so I've illustrated from the suggested solutions, I've shown you how the table can be done, and that can ensure you get all the marks. The examiner's report, again, what they are saying, some candidates explained less than the required 7. Now, why should you do that? You explain less than 7, then you're getting less marks. Get less marks simply means you may be failing an exam you should have passed. Some candidates did not even know that chief executive officer is part of management. Okay? Again, that is disappointing at this stage. It simply shows a lack of preparation. Then I took another question from March 2023 on governance. There's a lot of background information given. I think it was a page or so. And then you find that the required is explain the need for good governance. It's just explaining the need. Like I've said, companies have been collapsing. There have been scandals. Because of that, investors, shareholders, a lot of stakeholders would want to see sanity in these companies. Hence the need for good corporate governance. Those were 4 marks to take away. Then distinguish between executive directors and non-executive directors of Masuku Limited. It was only 2 marks. Okay? So meaning when you're explaining, don't over-explain, because it's only 2 marks. Then third part was explain 4 roles of non-executive directors of Masuku. Again, what you do is, even if you are mentioning Masuku, I think these are general knowledge questions. If you knew what non-executive directors do, you'd have got all 4 marks there. Or you needed to do a bit explaining. If you stated, no problem, you still get maybe 2 marks out of the 4, which is not good, which is not bad. At least you've got something. So the examiner's suggested solution is given there. Okay, again, the emphasis is knowledge-based. Okay, if you know what executive and non-executives do, you shouldn't have a problem. Laws of non-executive directors, again, there should be no problem. These constitute most of the committees. You know, the board of directors operates through committees. The examiner's report, again, one of the cardinal things coming out is that most of the candidates discuss general principles of governance without relating to Masuko Limited. So it's important that you appreciate the question requirement. They want you to relate to the company in the question. Relate to the company in the question, even when you're identifying deficiencies in the question. Okay, now we go to topic 3. Topic 3 is about professional ethics. Okay? Now, this is what makes an accountant. The fundamental principles of professional ethics. Issues of integrity, issues of objectivity, issues of professional competence and due care, issues of confidentiality, and also issues of professional behavior. That's what makes an accountant. That's why they even called fundamental principles. They're not called fundamental for that. They are fundamental because they make an account. Now, because we realize that we are not living in an ideal world, there are threats. So again, the codes of professional ethics warn you that there could be threats. So as an accountant, you should have the ability to identify the ethical threats and also try to evaluate them, whether significant or not, and then apply the necessary safeguards to mitigate them. If there are no safeguards, well, you can actually decline. But decline is not always a proper safeguard. So there's a question picked from December 2022 about ethics. The requirements were basically explain what is meant by integrity and confidentiality. Integrity is straightforward. Confidentiality definitely do not disclose, although the exception. Those were 5 marks. If you knew that, you get that's knowledge-based. Then using the information in the scenario. So again, if you go outside the scenario, you're not answering the question. You identify and explain 4 ethical threats which may affect the independence of Kawe & Company in the audit of financial statement of Elephant Limited. And the second part was, for each threat, suggest a suitable safeguard. So again, it was important for you to do a tabular format. Do a table so that you're able to identify, explain, and also offer a safeguard. Most students who do tables score very highly. In fact, they get all marks. In this case, there were 10 marks available. So it's important that you do a table when answering such questions. And then you stick to the issues in the scenario. Do not be defining those ethical principles. Here is just a matter of looking at the question and extracting what the ethical principles are. Okay. Suggested solutions is very clear. Okay, the tabular format again has been given, so that when you look at the presentation, you'll be able to appreciate how the tables are done, so that in future you can score highly. There's another question which was taken from December 2022. Okay, a lot of background information given in the question. Now, like I said, background information is there to assist you, answer the question properly. All they required you to do under Part D was explain the conflicts of interest that exist in the audit of financial statements. Okay? Now, conflicts of interest will normally come in if you're auditing competing companies. Okay? But again, it does not mean you cannot audit competing companies. If you're auditing MTN, Airtel also comes in. You can audit both of them. There's no one who stops you from doing that. In fact, maybe you may have expertise in telecommunications. So it's important that the clients themselves are consulted, whether they are comfortable with it or not. If they're not comfortable with it, they definitely have to make an economic decision as an auditor. Okay? So all that needed there is, do you have the knowledge about conflicts of interest? If you know, the all 8 marks would have been yours. But again, respecting the command word explain. If you just list, less marks. But if you explain, according to the examiner's requirement, you get the required marks. Again, the examiner's report simply saying most of the students did not know the meaning of conflict of interest. Now, if you don't know the meaning of conflict of interest, then you don't answer. So if you read your text properly, you are guided by professionals, you'll be able to answer these questions and pass without any problem. Others not answer other parts of the question. So is that you answer both parts of the question. If you're only answering part of the questions, you are disadvantaging yourself unnecessarily. Topic 4 was audit risk. Now, audit risk is also very, very important because audit risk is just the risk that an auditor can come up with a wrong opinion. Okay? Now, there are a number of areas. This is a very important topic which we cannot underestimate. So, there is an extract from December 22 examinations. Okay? Idea is examiners will give you a lot of detail. Like I've said, a lot of detail means that question is simple because most of the answers will be picked from the details. The requirement was under Part C, was define audit risk. That's define. Give the exact meaning of audit risk, which is simply the possibility of the auditor giving a wrong opinion. Then explain why. So you can see there is and there are two parts to a question. So try to make sure that you answer both parts. So explain why the concept of risk-based approach is important to auditors. Now, risk-based approach is important because you find that not every area of the financial statement is risky. Others are less risky. Once you go to the risk-based audit approach, you find that the chance of you being able to avoid giving a wrong opinion is reduced because you do more work in risk areas. Okay? Then there was also described audit risk in each of the 4 situations. Now, the examiners gave you the risk areas. What the examiner expected you is just to explain them and give appropriate responses. Now, definitely you find that the examiners always lament that the structure of the question is not right. If you are being told to do audit risks and also respond, again, a table will do the trick. I've given an extract of the suggested solutions to give you how the tables must be done. And the examiner's report is also put in the presentation for you to appreciate where most of the areas of concern are. Okay? Like we know, most of the students appear for the exam as if they've never even looked at the past paper. So it's always important that you look at the past papers, prepare adequately, like I've already stated. There's also another question from June 2022. It's the same principle. You find the requirement is define fraud. Now we're talking about fraud is deliberate. Okay? And explain the extent of the responsibility of the auditor, not the responsibility of management. Most of the students still live in the past where they think auditors are not responsible for, issues of fraud. No. Your ISA 240, which was revised, gives responsibilities for the auditors. As an auditor, there are some frauds which can affect the financial statements. They can lead to misstatement in the financial statement. Those, you are responsible. And normally there are just 2 of them. Misappropriation of assets and also fraudulent financial reporting. So you have to do. So all you have to do is you have to remain alert. So you have to exercise appropriate professional skepticism for you to be able to do that. Those were 6 marks. Okay? So if you knew fraud, you would have defined it. Then you go to explain the responsibility. Please don't explain the responsibility of management. It's the auditor's responsibility. Then we also expected to describe how audit software can be used. Now we live in an IT world. So if you don't know how software can be used, that's not right. At this stage, we have to know. Most of the auditing textbooks have been upgraded to include these IT issues, so that auditors do not remain behind. Most of the clients have advanced. Even auditors must be able to show that they are up to the task. Again, examiner's report simply means most of the majority of the candidates did define fraud. Unfortunately, they could not go further and talk about the responsibility of auditors. Most of them still live in the past that responsibility for fraud is just a primary issue for the management. Yes, it's correct to some part, but we are talking about responsibility of auditors. There's another question from March 2023. Okay? But what you notice is, even if there are these questions in these presentations, they are just there to point to the fact that you can still do it if you get the right format, right presentation, everything. So like I say again, define and explain audit risk. We've already done that. They are saying identify and explain 4 audit risks in this company and suggest suitable responses. Okay? So all you have to do is focus on the audit risks. And when you're talking about audit risks, you have to mention where misstatements could occur in the financial statements. If you don't do that, you may be talking about business risk. Okay, so it's always important. And then suggest a suitable response. What auditors will do, not management. Okay. So the formats are given there, so a solution is extracted there, so please look at them properly. You'd find that they are not as difficult as most of us think. Okay. Again, most of the students were not able to perform properly because either they lack the competences or they've never looked at any past paper. So it's always important that we prepare adequately for these exams. Now I come to topic 5. Topic 5 is about audit planning and documentation. Okay. Now your ESA 300 guides us properly. Okay. So December 2022, there was question 2 about planning. All it required students to do is to comment on the argument by the trainee auditor that planning involves subjectivity and there is a fair level of ignorance. So commenting is anything. The examiner just wanted you to show that you appreciate, you can actually also think outside the box. Yes, planning is subjective, but we are guided. That we can start with a bit of ignorance, but if anything comes to our attention as we start the audit, we can revise the plans. So there's no problem about that. Then also explain the 4 benefits of planning. Why give less than 4? So give 4. Don't give 5 again. If you give 5, the examiner will just mark the first 5, the first 4, that's it. So it's important that we are responsive to the specific questions being asked. So this was a knowledge-based question with a bit of, thinking outside the box for part A. Okay, examiners' comments. Again, most of the students who did not prepare adequately lost these few marks. Then we've got June 2022 examination. Okay. That was about defining audit working papers. Again, knowledge-based. Define, state exactly what that thing means. Then explain 5 reasons for maintaining. Again, those are straightforward. They've been examined a number of times. So you explain. If you just list them, less marks. Explain the reasons for including 5 items mentioned in the scenario. So there were some items mentioned in the scenario. Okay? For example, page reference, client year-end, signature of the viewer, test order, and how number of was determined. So those things, so you needed to explain those things. Definitely with a bit of knowledge, there should be no problem. But if you don't have knowledge, those are marks which cannot be obtained. Okay? So again, on documentation, ESA 230 is very clear. Okay? Again, those page references, whatever, can go wrong if you prepared adequate. So it's always important to prepare adequate and get guidance from professionals so that you're able to answer these exams. Then topic 6 was internal control. Now, internal control is a very important aspect of this course. Yeah? It's regularly asked, and it's better you know. What are internal controls, tests of controls, but those are divided into various topics. So we have got a question from June 2022, just to assist us. So the requirement was simply explain briefly, again they are saying briefly, although they gave 10 marks, the 5 elements of internal control system. This is knowledge-based, because these are elements which are mentioned by ESA 315. Okay? Once you know those things, there should be no problem. Okay? You've got the control environment, you've got the risk assessment system, you've got the information system, you've got control activities, you've got the monitoring. So those 5 were explained, get your marks. So without knowledge, again, you cannot guess. Then we come to topic 7. Now topic 7 was about the same controls, but evaluation of controls. Okay? The evaluation of internal control components, internal controls in a computerized environment, the limitation of internal controls. Okay? Again, it's a very topical, issue, because at your level, you will normally be dealing a lot with these controls. So from March 2023, an exam question was extracted by your presenter, okay, just to make sure that we appreciate what we're talking about. The requirement under Part C was describe the difference between internal control questionnaires and internal control evaluation questionnaires. That was 4 marks. Okay? Now, 4 marks, without knowing that differentiation, you cannot get them. What you should know is ICQs is there to look for desirable controls where they exist, while ICEQs are there to check whether, errors or misstatement can occur. Okay? So the questioning is different there. But again, if you know it from the textbook, from some guidance, should be no problem. Then D was explain general controls and application controls in a computerized environment. So general controls to do with a computer environment. Application controls are more specific. Again, those were 4 marks which students should have got with some preparation. Without preparation, definitely you answer. Then we go to topic 8. Topic 8 is now tests of controls. What auditors do to check the operative effectiveness of the controls in place. Because controls can be there on paper, but whether they are working in practice is another thing. So auditors do carry out tests. Now, if you're going to convince the examiner you're answering the question being asked, it's the way you start. Okay? Tests of controls must start with a verb. Okay, what you're going to do. If that is not the case, then it's likely that you may not be answering the question asked. So there's an extract from question 2, March 2023. Okay? The requirement was suggest 4 control activities. Now, control activities that should be implemented in the sales system of Mokuba Limited. And for each control activity, explain the control objectives. Since there are 2 parts there, a table would have done the trick. So the presentation has included a table from the suggested examiner's solutions, so you can appreciate how it should have been done. We've also taken a question from September 2022, okay, about these controls. Now they're saying, making reference to the information given in the scenario, about Chamber Limited, explain the internal controls you expect to be in place in the purchases and inventory system. When you're answering these questions, please do not behave as if you've never worked or you've never seen or you've never read about purchasing and inventory system. If you're going to demonstrate that, your answer will be way out of context. And to assist you, there's a scenario where they're describing this system. So just focus on that and then try to get out what the examiners want. Then for each internal control, you are required to suggest. So once there are 2 parts, do a table. Like I've already said, it's important. So examiners suggest solution is included, the table is also included. So examiner's comments, again, the examiner is always lamenting lack of knowledge and also issues to do with format. And we go to topic 9. Topic 9 is about audit evidence, sampling, and audit procedures. Audit evidence is very important. We are guided adequately by ISA 500. Okay? So audit evidence, we have to collect sufficient appropriate audit evidence for us to be able to back our audit opinion. Then sampling, we don't normally audit the population. We sample. Now sampling is part of mathematics. So which means as an auditor we are borrowing from mathematics. Now when you sample, get a representative sample. So issues of deciding whether to sample, whatever professional judgment comes in, okay, and also interpretation of those samples. Whatever you get as error in the sample must be projected into the population. That's also important. The audit procedures, what you're going to do as auditors to get that evidence. Okay? Now, if you want to suggest proper audit procedures, first and foremost, think about the financial statement assertions. What do you want to verify? Because financial statement assertion is the claims or representations by management contain the financial statement, which you as auditors are trying to verify and prove. So December 2022 exam, question 1, contained something about the procedures. So the requirement was simply explain any 4 financial statement assertions relevant to inventory among the financial statement. So just explaining any 4, please. If you give less, again, it was 8 marks. But they went ahead and also required you to explain the audit objective. So again, a table, because there will be financial statement assertion. What is the objective? Okay? If you do a table, it's very easy for you to be able to capture this and get all the marks. So although the examiner did not do a table, but again, a table would have done the trick. Okay, then December 2022, again a past exam question, about the same. The requirement was explaining 3 deficiencies in the internal control function foreseen. And now we're talking about internal control here because internal auditors are mainly an important ingredient when testing controls. That's why as an auditor, you may rely on the internal auditors. Okay? Our ISA 610, guides us properly, but when you're relying on internal auditors, you must make sure that you evaluate them. Okay? For example, how do they report to? Do they report to the audit committee, which is recommended? Okay, how competent are they as a function, not just one chap qualified, no, as a function, how competent are they? And also, we may have to look at the work. Is the work up to standard? Is it recorded? Is there planning? Is there direction? Is there supervision, review? All those things must be looked at. The quality of their work. If I'm satisfied, definitely as an auditor, I may not do detailed tests of controls because the internal auditor has already done that. There's also an aspect of direct assistance, which is very, very risky. But although we are saying evidence must be obtained, and that evidence must be sufficient and appropriate. So internal auditors may assist us in getting the sufficient, appropriate audit evidence. We have an extract from June 2022, question 1, examination. Question. So you'd find that the requirement was explain the purpose of using analytical procedures at each of the 3 stages of the audit for Impala Limited. Whether it is Impala Limited or any other, the 3 stages of the audit are simply planning, performing the audit itself, and reviewing, which is the reporting part. Okay? You plan, you do the work, and then you report. Those are the main 3 stages of an audit. Now, analytical procedures are key because you're trying to examine the relationships, okay? And not just any relationship, the plausible, credible relationships. So again, our ISA 520 gives detailed guidance. If you've never been tutored in ISA 520, then definitely getting the 7 marks which are available there could have been a big problem. So it's always important that you get the guidance I'm talking about, because ISA 520 will also be examined highly at the next level, which means your CA 3.2. So it's always important that these things are done properly at this level. So if you're using analytical procedures at the planning stage, you're trying to set the scene for the audit. So it's a technique which will assist you in risk assessment, trying to identify the risk areas and the like. If you're using it at the substantive stage during the audit, you're trying to get more evidence. Okay? That's sufficient, appropriate evidence we're talking about. If you're looking at the review stage, it will give you a sense. You want to see whether the financial statements are making sense or not. So it's always important that we do these assessments properly. So analytical procedure is something you just have to know if you're going to be a proper student of auditing. Then March 2023 exam, okay, there's a question 2 there. You find that under B, the requirement was explain the principle of directional testing. Now it was only 4 marks. So meaning anyone who knew something got something out of the 4 marks. So it's always important that we appreciate that. So directional testing is based on the double entry bookkeeping. And what you should know is auditors are looking for misstatements. Misstatements can either be overstatement or understatement. And the direction may be, are you moving from the source documents to financial statements, or financial statement to the source document? So it depends on whether you're testing for understatement or you're testing for overstatement. So it's always important that you appreciate that. Definitely from examiner's report, most students did not even do that question because they lacked the knowledge. There's also another question from March 2023 about the same topic. The requirement under A was simply explain the meaning of anomalies in sample results. Now, anomalies are simply those misstatements which are not representative, which cannot be projected in the population. So again, if you did not know that, we would not have answered this question. There are only 3 marks available, however, okay? And also explain how. Okay, so what we are saying is there are 2 parts, but again, if you knew, you would have actually. So it's important to know. Then September 2022, okay, there was a question under question 1. The A part simply said, explain the meaning of sampling risk and non-sampling risk. Okay, so again, you get answers like non-sampling risk is a risk which have nothing to do with the samples. No. Non-sampling risk simply means the sample is okay, but maybe the auditor misinterprets the results. Okay, so it also has to do with samples. So it's always important that you know. This is again knowledge-based. So knowledge simply means you get the knowledge from the textbooks. If you can't get it from the textbook, try to get someone to tutor you who can actually appreciate whatever. And then we are saying explain the meaning. So just a matter of stating, explaining. So the command word, very, very important. There's a question from September 2022. Okay, explain what is meant by CAT, computer-assisted audit techniques. So again, that's knowledge-based. And give 3 examples. So there are 2 parts there. Most students just answer the other part. Okay, they don't give examples. So it's better you give examples. Those are 4 marks. It's not asking too much from you. Then explain the impact of auditing in a computerized environment. Okay, so what we are saying is whether the client is computerized or it's manual, your responsibility as an auditor remains the same. And then they state, they're using a low-level verb, state 3 reasons why it is appropriate to use CAT. So that is not asking too much. So those are 3 marks, you just state. Okay. Most of the students lack knowledge. They don't even know what CATs are. Now go to topic 10. Okay. Now topic 10 is simply audit evidence in specific areas, like the tangible non-current assets, inventory, receivable, cash and bank liabilities, and capital. So question from December 2022. The requirement was explain giving 2 suitable examples what is meant by window dressing. If you don't know the term window dressing, you've lost the 3 marks. But if you knew, the 3 marks was simple. So window dressing is simply trying to show a picture which is not true. Okay? You want to apply cosmetics to the accounts, and the auditors will not even say that. So it's always important that auditors are checking for that, because we have to make sure that window dressing is not, if it's there, it's actually disclosed, so people know about it. Then D was described 7 substantive procedures. So 7, please. Now substantive procedures, like I said, first of all, think about the financial statement assertion you are trying to prove. Then your procedures will make a lot of sense. And also, please mention documents. Okay? Don't just say, I'll look at this one. This is the bank balances. Bank balances, there are things like the bank letters you have to send to the banks, bank confirmation letters. Okay? There are bank statements you may have to look at. There are cash books like that. So it's important that you mention exactly what you're trying to look at. Okay? So it's always important. But give 7 like you wanted. If you give less, you're disadvantaging yourself. Don't give tests of controls. It's substantive procedure. June 2022, we also had another question in this topic. Okay? Now that question had a lot of background information, but again the requirement under Part C was suggest 7 inventory count instructions. That was giveaway. Okay? Just suggesting. So if you've read a lot, or even a bit, about inventory, audit of inventory, you would have got all the 7 marks here. Because it's just a matter of what? Suggesting inventory count. Things like, please, before the inventory count, the storerooms or the warehouses must be tidy, must be okay. And also there should be some boss there who should oversee the inventory counting process. Also, no one should use pencils. People should use ink. Those are simple things which people should be able to, and get part of the 7 marks. The next under Part B was explain the work that auditors who will attend the physical inventory will do at each stage. So there was before the inventory count. Before the inventory count, there should be some planning. As an auditor, you should know what inventory will be counted, where are they, okay? Should be able to visit. Then during the inventory count, you are trying to check whether people are following the instructions. Okay? That's very important. Then you also do test control. Okay? You go test counts. You do not do the counting yourself as an auditor. No, the counting is for the client. And then also, after the count, your interest is valuation now. Are they valuing what they counted? So you find that as an auditor, you've got work to do before, during, and after. There were 4 marks, and 3 marks. So if you knew that, you would have actually got all the marks. Another part from June 2022, where I say recommend 3 substantive analytical procedures. Now, when they're just substantive, they're talking about accruals. What should come to your mind as the procedure is normally comparisons. So it's very, very important that we do that. There are only 3 marks, but most students omitted this, and they do not do well. Question from June 2022, recommend 8 procedures. Now, 8. If you're able to do 8, no problem. If you can't do 8, do whatever you can. But it must be relevant to completeness of trade payables. Okay? Because what you should know is for liabilities, clients may want to understate. That's why they're talking about completeness. So you should be able to dig in as a student and know why they're using the word completeness. If you talk about existence, you're out of the question. Recommend 8 on completeness. Then September 2022, we are saying, state, again, stating is a low-level verb. You can state and explain the purpose of 6 procedures that you should use to identify inventory which may be worth less. So looking at IS2, IS2 requires us to value inventories using the law of cost and net realizable value. So as a note, I must know which areas or which indicators can actually show that, no, these inventories are worth less than the cost. Issues like deterioration, okay? Issues like having a deliberate marketing policy to penetrate the market, so you're selling at a lower than cost, so all those things should have been brought out. Again, this is knowledge-based. There were 12 marks being given there. So topic 11, audit review and finalization of and the audit report. Now, audit report is a very important aspect because that's what defines what you've been doing. So every student of auditing must know that before we do the audit report, there are things like subsequent events to be looked at, going concern, detailed representations, overall evaluation. Okay? All those must be looked at before we do the audit report. Okay? Now, subsequent events are things which happen after the period ends. Now, those, according to IS 10, an accounting standard, they may be adjusting events or non-adjusting events. So it's always important that we appreciate those two. Even as an auditor, we are guided by ISA 560 on our responsibility. Our responsibility is to get sufficient appropriate evidence in those areas and report appropriately. Going concern issues, again, you find that clients would want to present accounts using going concern assumption that the company will continue the foreseeable future. They have no intentions of closing on the line. However, when you move in, you may find that there's some doubt. So if there's some material uncertainty, you are guided by ISA 570. So I'm mentioning that because if you do not know them, you will not be able to answer questions properly. The detailed representations, there are certain things we would want to get as evidence as auditors from the client concerning certain issues. Okay? There are some representations which are needed, whether like for things like management responsibility. Those must be put in writing. So again, our ISA 580 gives guidance. Then overall evaluation, we want to appreciate now whether what we're looking at as financial statements are making sense or not. Now, the auditor's report can either be unmodified or modified. Okay? Unmodified simply means according to our ISA 700, nothing else. Modified report, not modified report. Modified report simply means when you've added something which is not contained in the ISA 700 standard report. Things like emphasis of matter paragraph, other matter paragraph. So it's always important that we appreciate those distinctions. Then if we talk about modified report, including modified opinion, that's when now we talk about qualified opinion, adverse opinion, disclaimer of opinion. You must know that for any modifications to happen, the issues at hand must be material. If those issues are pervasive, then they graduate into either adverse opinion or disclaimer, depending on what you're looking at. Misstatements, which are material and pervasive, lead to adverse opinion. Lack of sufficient appropriate evidence, which is material and pervasive, lead to disclaimer of opinion. Now, reports to management are simply, where you actually mention what weaknesses you found out, what recommendations, what consequences may be there if those things continue, and also what are your recommendations. You also have to make sure that management responds to your findings. So, December 22, question 3, part B also brought out something on these issues. So there's described the purpose of key audit matters paragraph. It was only 2 marks. So if you've read about ISA 701, you'd get the 2 marks. Okay? Because the purpose is just to improve or enhance the communicative value of the audit report. Okay? Then under part 2, they are saying explain the appropriateness or otherwise of the basic elements identified by the trainee auditor. So a number of issues were given by the examiner, and I wanted you to comment on them. So again, if you went outside the question, you did not answer the question asked. It was not possible for you to get any marks. So it's always important that you look at the issues being talked about in the scenario. Then December 2022, There was a question 4, part C, said explain the purpose of addressee, date of the auditor's report, and auditor's signature, including the auditor's report. So again, that's knowledge-based. If you knew those things, you should be able to explain, and you should have got your 5 marks. But unfortunately, most of us go to these exams and prepared and demonstrate ignorance instead of knowledge. June 2022, question 4. The part A required students to discuss the inherent risk in the evidence obtained from management. Now, when you look at getting evidence from management, for example, talked about written representations under your ISA 5.8. Even if we got that, management is an interested part. The chance of them not telling the truth can be high, depending on their levels of integrity. So you are required to demonstrate that. You know that. And then explain, giving appropriate examples. So again, there are more than one part there. There were 8 marks. So students must have read the question clearly, took a bit of time, planned their answers. They should have been able to get these 8 marks. Then explain the provision of the Companies Act that give confidence that whatever you're getting from management is okay. There are only 2 marks there. The Companies Act is very clear. Okay? If an officer of the company gives wrong information to the auditors, that is an offense. Okay? It's an offense. So because of that, you find that most of these chaps may give you more reliable information. There was an extra, some question from March 2023, again about the same topic. Okay? So simply saying, explain the duty of statutory auditor between 31st December and the 8th, the date of approval. This question was all about subsequent events. If you knew your IS 1, IS 10, and also you knew your ISA 560, this was a giveaway. There are 12 marks available for you. If you did not know what is stated in IS 10, adjusting events, non-adjusting events, and also ISA 560, auditor's responsibilities, this question was beyond you. But it's always important to prepare adequately, because when people are preparing accounts, events do not stop at the year end. They continue up to the general meeting, even beyond. But our standards have guided us on how we should actually respond, what are our responsibilities in those areas. March 2023, again, there was a question 2. Okay. Part D simply stated, state 4 matters that are implied in an unmodified audit opinion. We are not saying talk about unmodified audit opinion. No. We are saying, if the auditors say these financial statements are showing a true and fair view, what else are they saying by implication? So things like the company has maintained proper books of accounts, things like they've received all the cooperation they needed, for example, explanations from management, information they wanted. Those are the things the examiner wanted you to talk about. And they was using a low-level verb, state, command word, state. So again, these are simply things you pick from your knowledge. And they are clearly explained in the textbook. So meaning the 4 marks was giveaway. But you needed to state, don't explain, please. March 2023, there was an audit report given, an extract for that matter. So the examiner was simply saying, evaluate the extract from the draft audit report suggested by the audit senior. So what you needed to do is to go line by line using the extract. Okay? Most students have this tendency of trying to discuss the entire audit report. No, when you're given an extract, please, your focus must be on the extract. Then September 2022, there was question 1, with the various details given. The requirement under B was explain the responsibilities of the auditor regarding uncorrected misstatements. Again, if you knew ISA 450, you had no problem in any of those 4 marks. If you did not know, you would actually be struggling. Then C, evaluate the information for 3 audit clients. So there are 3 clients given, and the audit senior had suggested some reports. And they were also saying, suggest recommendations. So don't guess. Okay? Like I said, audit opinions may be, unmodified, modified, either qualified, if it's material, okay, but not pervasive, okay, Pervasive simply means the whole financial statements cannot be trusted. Then if it's material and pervasive and talking about a misstatement, then we're talking about adverse opinion. If it is material and pervasive, we're talking about lack of evidence. We talk about disclaimer of opinion. So it's important to know which is what. Do not think an emphasis of matter paragraph or other matter paragraph, or even the CAMs, key audit matter paragraphs, those modify the opinion. They don't. Okay? So you really need to have proper guidance on these issues. Well, most students just try to guess. Don't guess. You'd find that most of the students performed badly because they did not know. All the auditing standard, when you come to reporting, you have to know your ISA 700, you have to know your ISA 701, you have to know your ISA 505, you have to know ISA 706. You also have to know ISA 720, is other information. Okay? Now, other information contained in that annual report, because auditors don't audit that information, they look for consistency. So there are a lot of details there. Then September 2022 was another aspect. So C said, describe the impact on the audit report of Chembe if the audit believes that the company is a going concern, but material uncertainty exists. There are only 4 marks. Again, if you know what the guidance is in ISA 570, you should have got this. Okay? Including nowadays, we are required to put a paragraph concerning material uncertainty related to going concern. It stands out. Previously, it used to be put under emphasis of matter paragraph. It's no longer there. So you check the revised, reports, audit reports. It should stand on its own. Okay? And it has to be disclosed. If they don't disclose, that's another issue altogether. Because they are talking about the misstatement, the financial statements. There was a question, okay, which also is very important, okay, on define a letter of representation. We've talked about ISA 580. It's only 3 marks. And go put 2 basic elements. So again, it's not a very serious issue. But for passing, 3 marks can also make a difference. Then B, discuss the reliability of a letter of representation. Okay, so reliability. Now, that letter of representation is coming from management. And make sure that is appreciated. Management is an interested party. They may be telling lies. Now, you cannot use letter of representation as evidence in the audit of bank and cash. No, because that's what the audit senior suggested here. Audit of bank and cash, they are facts. As an auditor, you can go to the bank itself and get the bank letter. If you leave a statement, get statements from there. So it's always important that you distinguish when letters of representation may have some levels of, reliability. I think this is where my presentation ends. I hope the presentation should be taken as an excellent complement to the study text and other recommended reading material. Students must answer the questions asked, not what they wanted asked. At this level, answer planning, time management, and also making sure that you have the technical knowledge needed to pass the exams are important. Use the 15 minutes reading time properly. Okay? It is hoped that the presentation will significantly contribute to improved pass rates. I thank you for listening. Wishing you all the best in examinations. God bless you. For any further clarifications, you can contact Zika.